Yo ho, me hearties, and welcome back to Piratical History with yon host, Drew the Derelict, or Drew Abernathy, whichever. Yar. Hey everybody, welcome back to Piratical History, and this time we are diving into the life of one of the most influential pirates of the Caribbean. Now, can I call him the most influential pirate of all time? No. You got Chinche, who was the pirate queen of Southeast Asia. You probably could say the Barbary pirates are pretty influential until Thomas Jefferson came around. But if you're looking for someone who was you could call the grandfather of all pirates, it would have to be Benjamin Hornigold. So Benjamin's early life is somewhat fuzzy. They deduce that he may have been born in County Norfolk. Now, for all my English listeners out there, is it Norfolk or Norfolk? Because where I'm from in Eastern North Carolina, it's either Norfolk or Norfolk. It's one time you can cuss without getting into trouble. So he looked to have been born in County Norfolk around 1680. And why do they think that he was born? Why do the historians think that he was born there? Well, there's a lot of people in this area who have the last name of Hornigold or Hornigold. And if this is the case, it looks to have been that seafaring was definitely in his blood, and he probably first set sail from either Great Yarmouth or King's Lynn and began his life early on the seas. One of his first acts of piracy looks to have been between 1713 and 1714, where he employed periaguas. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Periaguas. They are small canoes or sailing vessels, and he would command all these other periaguas alongside the sloop, the Happy Return, off the coast of New Providence in the Bahamas. And he worked with pirates Daniel Stilwell, John Cochran, and John West. He himself captained the periagua Jonathan Duvel, and he would sell his stolen wares to a local merchant in the Bahamas. This one merchant that he used to work with pretty exclusively asked Hornigold to train his son to become a pirate. And in return for teaching his son to become a pirate, the pay was he would get his own small sailing ship. That was Hornigold. So in November, some of the history events and stuff that I found kind of overlap. So if I get some of the timeline a little askew, my apologies. So in November 1715, Hornigold, alongside Henry Jennings, whom he would later loathe, overtook Nassau in the Bahamas and made it a pirate haven. Nassau still had a British appointed governor, and Hornigold called him a troublesome old fart. He kind of hinted to the governor that he could either hightail it out of town or continue on and the people would harangue him silly, or he can just be quiet and stay there. So the governor decided to stay quiet and stay in town. And at this time, because Nassau became a pirate haven, the pirates outnumbered the locals who were pirates. Okay, yeah, that works. 10-1. So you had a town of 1,000 people of Nassau, Bahamas. 900, well, let's say 1,100. 1,000 of them were pirates. 100 were just locals. See how that math is working out? He and Jennings would mentor famous pirates such as Blackbeard, Charles Vane, Calico Jack Rackham, Stede Bonnet, Mary Read, Anne Bonny, Black Sam Bellamy, the Buzzard, Oliver Levasseur, I may get into him next, and Edward England. So this little core group of pirates would become known as the Flying Gang. In December of 1715, he captured the Spanish sloop of war and renamed it the Benjamin. So there in Nassau, he decided, hey, we've got an old fort. We probably need to man it and use it as for protection in case the British decide to come in and say, hey, we're knocking you out of power here. So he would get a group of men together. And now in Nassau, the fort is up on a hill. So he needed this group of men that he hired to bring all this stuff up the hill. So he got them to bring up a couple of cannons, I believe, some heavy long guns, and also a bunch of stone to fix this old fort up. So how would he pay these guys? In alcohol, all the booze they could drink. And to a pirate, That is high pay. I mean, we're talking six figures a year here for these guys. And soon after he repaired the fort and kind of made it a big pirate haven, the governor would hightail it out of town, and Hornigold would become the sheriff around those parts. He would later take the Marianne, or another ship that he would call the Marianne. And T.S. Rhodes said that Hornigold traded the Benjamin for this other sloop which he would call the Marianne, after the bottom of the Benjamin would start to rot out. It was fairly common practice in those days for pirates to swap ships every so often to make it harder for the authorities to ID them. I guess if you're a bank robber or car robber and you switch cars to get out of town, it now becomes harder because you also, A, you need witnesses, B, the police can only go off of the current information they're given. So if you started off in a Nissan Altima, traded cars 3 or 4 times and ended up in a Ford Focus, well, I don't know why you'd be in a Ford Focus, but wound up in a Ford Focus out of town, it'd be harder to figure out where you're at, where you're going, because you've swapped cars. So in early 1716, Edward Teach would join Hornigold in fishing Spanish wrecks off the coast of Florida. They would meet up in Jamaica, I think in Kingstown, Port Royal, somewhere around there. And they would each command 9-gun sloops of their own, have a total of 90 men under their command, and just start finding Spanish wrecks off the coast of Florida so they can get rich that way. In the summer of 1716, he barely bothered British flagged ships in the area so he could use the cover of being a privateer, and this patriotism would work against England in the wars of Spanish succession. And Mark Shirk says that this decision by Hornigold and others caused issues for the British crown and would lead to the War of Quadruple Alliance in 1719. Hornigold's lieutenants didn't like this, and they voted that they should attack any ship they wanted to. And Hornigold wasn't too keen on this idea, and soon after he was replaced as captain of the Marianne by the one Black Sam Bellamy, who would become one of the richest pirates of all time. I mean, he would surpass, looks like Black Bart Roberts and also Henry too. Hornigold was a king. I'm backtracking. So Black Sam overthrew Hornigold and then would elect his friend Palsgrave Williams as quartermaster. Norton says that this was a reflection of the time of a day of new radicalization of pirates where they abandoned nationality and civility, and they just became more violent and brazen and anarchist in a way. The Hornigold faction was given the sloop the Ranger, which he placed under the command of his second in command, Edward Teach. And in the spring of 1717, they would seize 3 merchant ships, one right after the other. Sometime after the mutiny, Hornigold named Blackbeard captain and would give him his own ship and crew. Blackbeard, Edward Teach. They terrorized the Caribbean and the east coast of America and would capture the 26-gun French ship, the Concorde, I think, which was soon handed over to Teach in totality, in toto, whatever. And Teach would name this the Queen Anne's Revenge. Not too long afterwards, Hornigold and Blackbeard were part ways, I think, in 1717, late 1717, 1718. Baylus Brooks writes that Blackbeard took the Concorde himself without the help of Hornigold, and we'll dive into this at a later date. In fact, Brooks suggests from his research that it may have been Steve Bonnet, not Hornigold, that was Blackbeard's mentor. Kind of weird how all these things cross together. In March of 1717, Hornigold went after a pirate hunter vessel sent to the Bahamas by the governor of South Carolina. The crew escaped Hornigold's small armada by running aground on Cat Cay, in which the captain reported Hornigold now had 5 ships under his command. In April of 1717, Hornigold is seen working alongside Captain Napin, looting ships off of Jamaica, the north coast of Panama, and Cuba before being chased off by the HMS Winchelsea, not sure how to pronounce that. Hornigold and Napin would work alongside each other off and on until October of 1717. Well, this is part 1 of my 2 parts talking about the history of Benjamin Hornigold. And when we come back, we'll get into the later life of Benjamin Hornigold.